Street musician mocked in public gets a life-changing surprise from Ronaldo. How will this story unfold? To find out, watch the video to the end. But first, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to get more stories like this. The sun-dappled streets of the vibrant city pulsed with energy as people hurried about their daily lives, their minds preoccupied with the endless demands of work and family. Amidst the chaos, a young man named Marco sat on the sidewalk, his worn guitar cradled in his arms, his fingers dancing across the strings with a skill that belied his humble appearance. Marco was a struggling musician, his days spent pouring his heart and soul into his music, hoping against hope that someone would stop and listen, that someone would recognize the talent that burned within him. But most people simply hurried past, their eyes fixed on their smartphones, their ears deaf to the beauty that flowed from his fingertips. Some even laughed at him, their cruel eyes taking in his threadbare clothes and battered guitar case, their lips curling in disdain. They saw him as nothing more than a failure, a dreamer who would never amount to anything, a loser who deserved nothing but their scorn. But Marco refused to let their mockery break him. He knew that music was his calling, his reason for being, the one thing that gave his life meaning and purpose. And so he played on, his fingers flying across the strings, his voice rising above the din of the city, daring to dream of a better life. As the afternoon wore on, the streets began to fill with the usual crowd of shoppers and office workers, their faces etched with the stress and strain of their daily lives. Marco watched them pass by, his heart aching with the knowledge that they would never understand the depth of his passion, the fire that burned within him. But then a group of young men caught his eye, their designer clothes and expensive watches marking them as the kind of people who had never known a moment of hardship in their lives. They were laughing and joking amongst themselves, their voices loud and obnoxious, their eyes glinting with a cruel light. As they drew closer, Marco felt a sense of unease wash over him. He had encountered their kind before, the privileged few who looked down on those less fortunate than themselves, who saw the world as nothing more than a playground for their own amusement. And then, they were upon him, their laughter ringing in his ears, their faces twisted into sneers of contempt. "Look at this loser," one of them crowed, his voice dripping with disdain. "He thinks he's some kind of rock star, but he's nothing but a pathetic beggar." The others joined in, their taunts growing louder and more vicious with each passing moment. They threw coins at Marco's feet, their laughter echoing off the buildings, their eyes glinting with a malicious joy. Marco felt his cheeks burn with humiliation, his fingers faltering on the strings. He wanted to stand up, to confront them, to tell them that they were wrong, that he was more than just a street musician, that he had a dream that burned brighter than anything they could imagine. But he knew that it was useless. They would never understand, never see beyond the surface, never recognize the depth of his talent or the strength of his spirit. And so he lowered his head, his eyes fixed on the ground, his fingers continuing to play even as his heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. What he didn't realize, what none of them realized, was that someone else was watching, someone who understood all too well the pain of being mocked and belittled, of having your dreams dismissed as nothing more than foolish fantasies. Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the greatest footballers of all time, stood at the edge of the crowd, his eyes fixed on Marco, his heart aching with a profound sense of recognition. He had come from humble beginnings himself, had known the sting of poverty and the crushing weight of low expectations. And he had fought against it all, had clawed his way to the top through sheer determination and an unshakable belief in himself. And now, as he watched Marco play, as he saw the raw talent that flowed from his fingertips, he knew that he was witnessing something special, something rare and precious that deserved to be nurtured and celebrated. Without a word, Ronaldo stepped forward, his presence parting the crowd like the Red Sea. The young men fell silent, their eyes widening in shock and disbelief as they recognized the man who now stood before them. Ronaldo paid them no heed, his attention focused solely on Marco. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a wad of cash, the bills crisp and new, the amount staggering in its generosity. With a gentle smile, he placed the money in Marco's guitar case, his eyes meeting the young musicians in a moment of silent understanding. "Don't ever let anyone tell you that you're not good enough," he said, his voice soft but filled with a fierce conviction. "You have a gift, a talent that deserves to be shared with the world. Don't let their laughter, their mockery, their cruelty stop you from chasing your dreams." Marco stared up at him, his eyes wide with shock and wonder, his heart swelling with a sudden fierce hope. He had never dared to imagine that someone like Ronaldo, someone so famous and successful, would ever notice him, would ever see the value in his music. But here he was standing before him, offering not just his money but his support, his encouragement, his belief in Marco's talent. It was a moment that would change Marco's life forever, a moment that would prove that true success came not from belittling others but from lifting them up. As Ronaldo walked away, the crowd erupted in a frenzy of whispers and speculation. Who was this young musician, they wondered, that he had caught the attention of one of the world's greatest athletes? What was it about his music that had moved Ronaldo so deeply that it compelled him to offer such a staggering act of generosity? But Marco hardly heard them, his mind reeling with the enormity of what had just happened. He looked down at the money in his guitar case, his heart racing with a sudden, fierce determination. He knew that this was his chance, his moment to prove to the world that he was more than just a street musician, that he had a talent that deserved to be heard. With a deep breath, he began to play, his fingers flying across the strings with a newfound energy and passion. The music that flowed from him was unlike anything the crowd had ever heard before, a haunting melody that spoke of love and loss, of hope and heartbreak, of the indomitable human spirit that refused to be broken. And as he played, Marco felt a sense of clarity wash over him, a sudden understanding of his place in the world. He knew that he had been given a gift, a talent that was meant to be shared, a voice that was meant to be heard. And he knew that he would spend the rest of his life honoring that gift, chasing his dreams with everything he had, no matter how many obstacles he faced along the way. In the days and weeks that followed, Marco's life began to change in ways he had never imagined. The video of his performance of Ronaldo's incredible act of generosity had gone viral, spreading across the internet like wildfire. Suddenly, Marco found himself inundated with offers from record labels and talent agents, all of them clamoring to sign him, to be the one to discover the next big thing in music. He was invited to perform on television shows and at music festivals. His name and face splashed across magazines and websites, his music played on radio stations around the world. But through it all, Marco never forgot the lesson that Ronaldo had taught him, the truth that had been seared into his heart on that fateful day. He knew that success was not about fame or fortune, about the size of your bank account or the number of followers you had on social media. It was about staying true to yourself, about chasing your dreams with passion and perseverance, about lifting others up even as you climbed to the top. And so, as his star began to rise, as his music began to touch the hearts and minds of people around the world, Marco made a promise to himself. He would use his platform, his influence, his success to make a difference in the world, to be a force for good in a world that so desperately needed it. Years passed, and Marco's music continued to inspire and uplift people around the globe. His albums went platinum, his concerts sold out in minutes, his face graced the covers of magazines and billboards. But through it all, Marco remained true to his roots, to the humble beginnings that had shaped him into the man he was today. He never forgot the struggles he had faced, the obstacles he had overcome, the people who had believed in him when no one else would. And he never forgot about Ronaldo, the man who had changed his life with a single act of kindness, who had shown him the true meaning of success and generosity. One day, as Marco was preparing for a concert in Ronaldo's hometown, he received a message from the football star himself. Ronaldo had heard that Marco was in town, and he wanted to invite him to dinner to catch up and reminisce about old times. Marco was thrilled by the invitation, his heart racing with excitement and nerves as he arrived at the restaurant. And when he saw Ronaldo waiting for him, his face lit up with that same warm smile that had greeted him all those years ago. He felt a rush of gratitude and affection wash over him. Over dinner, Marco and Ronaldo talked and laughed, sharing stories of their triumphs and challenges, their hopes and dreams for the future. They spoke of the power of music and sports to bring people together, to inspire and uplift, to change lives and transform communities. And as the evening drew to a close, Ronaldo leaned forward, his eyes filled with a sudden intensity. "I want to thank you, Marco," he said, his voice soft but filled with emotion, "for taking the gift that I gave you all those years ago and using it to make the world a better place. For never forgetting where you came from, for always staying true to yourself and your dreams." Marco felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes, his heart swelling with gratitude and love. "I should be the one thanking you," he said, his voice choked with emotion, "for believing in me, for giving me the courage to chase my dreams, for showing me that success is about so much more than money or fame." Ronaldo smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "We all have a role to play in this world, Marco," he said, his voice filled with wisdom and grace. "We all have a responsibility to use our talents, our influence, our success to make a difference in the lives of others. That's what true greatness is all about." In the years that followed, Marco and Ronaldo remained close friends, their bond forged by the shared experience of that fateful day on the streets of the city. They collaborated on charity projects and fundraising events, using their fame and fortune to support causes close to their hearts. Marco continued to make music that touched the souls of millions, his voice and his guitar becoming a beacon of hope and inspiration for people around the world. He mentored young musicians, sharing with them the lessons he had learned, the wisdom he had gained, the passion that had driven him to the top. And Ronaldo continued to be a force for good in the world of sports, using his platform to promote social justice and equality, to inspire young athletes to chase their dreams with the same fierce determination that had propelled him to greatness. Together, they were a formidable team, a shining example of what could be achieved when two people came together in the spirit of generosity and compassion, of lifting others up even as they climbed to the top. As the years passed, Marco's music continued to evolve and grow, his sound becoming more complex and sophisticated, his lyrics delving deeper into the human experience. He experimented with new genres and collaborations, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in the world of music. But through it all, he never lost sight of his roots, of the humble beginnings that had shaped him into the man he was today. He continued to perform on the streets of the city, his guitar case open at his feet, his music drawing in crowds of people from all walks of life. And whenever he played, he thought of Ronaldo, of the man who had shown him the true meaning of success and generosity, who had given him the courage to chase his dreams and never look back. One day, as he was packing up his guitar after a particularly moving performance, the young girl approached him, her eyes wide with wonder and admiration. "Excuse me," she said, her voice trembling with nerves. "Are you Marco, the famous musician?" Marco smiled, his heart warming at the sight of her. "I am," he said, his voice gentle and kind. "And what's your name?" "Sophia," the girl replied, her cheeks flushing with excitement. "I just wanted to tell you that your music changed my life. It gave me hope when I was feeling lost. It gave me courage when I was feeling afraid. It made me believe that anything is possible if you just keep chasing your dreams." Marco felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes, his heart swelling with emotion. "Thank you, Sophia," he said, his voice choked with gratitude. "That means more to me than you could ever know. And I want you to remember something. No matter what anyone tells you, no matter how many obstacles you face, never stop believing in yourself. Never stop chasing your dreams. Because you have a gift, a talent, a voice that deserves to be heard. And the world needs more people like you. People who are brave enough to shine their light, even in the darkest of times." Sophia nodded, her eyes shining with tears of joy and gratitude. And as she walked away, Marco knew that he had just witnessed something special, something rare and precious that he would never forget. As Marco's fame continued to grow, he found himself invited to perform at some of the most prestigious events in the world. He played for presidents and prime ministers, for royalty and celebrities, his music transcending language and culture, touching hearts and minds across the globe. But through it all, he never forgot the lessons he had learned on the streets of the city, the wisdom he had gained from his friendship with Ronaldo. He knew that true success was not about the size of the crowd or the number of awards on your shelf. It was about the impact you had on the lives of others, the way you used your talents and your influence to make the world a better place. And so, when he was invited to perform at the World Cup, the biggest stage in all of sports, he knew that he had to use the opportunity to send a message, to inspire and uplift in the way that only music could. As he stepped out onto the field, his guitar in hand, he felt a rush of nerves and excitement wash over him. He knew that billions of people were watching, that his performance would be remembered for years to come. But as he began to play, as his fingers danced across the strings and his voice rose above the roar of the crowd, he felt a sense of peace and clarity wash over him. He knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. And as he looked out over the sea of faces, he saw Ronaldo standing there, his eyes shining with pride and admiration. And in that moment, Marco knew that he had found his true calling, his true purpose in life. In the years that followed, Marco continued to use his music as a force for good in the world. He founded a charity that provided music education and instruments to underprivileged children, giving them the same opportunity that he had been given all those years ago. He collaborated with other artists and activists, using his platform to raise awareness about important social and political issues. He spoke out against injustice and inequality, his voice becoming a rallying cry for those who had been marginalized and oppressed. And through it all, he remained humble and grounded, never forgetting the struggles he had faced, the obstacles he had overcome, the people who had believed in him when no one else would. He continued to perform on the streets of the city, his guitar case open at his feet, his music drawing in crowds of people from all walks of life. And whenever someone would ask him why he still played there after all the success he had achieved, he would simply smile and say, "Because this is where I found my voice. This is where I learned what it means to be true to yourself, to chase your dreams with everything you have." And I never want to forget that. As Marco grew older, his music continued to evolve and change, his sound becoming more introspective and reflective. He wrote songs about love and loss, about the joys and sorrows of the human experience, about the way that music could heal even the deepest of wounds. And as he looked back on his life, on the journey that had brought him to where he was today, he knew that he had been blessed beyond measure. He had been given a gift, a talent, a voice that had the power to change lives and transform hearts. But he also knew that he had been given something even more precious, the friendship and support of people like Ronaldo, people who had believed in him when no one else would, who had shown him the true meaning of success and generosity. And so, when he was invited to give a commencement speech at a prestigious university, he knew exactly what he wanted to say. He wanted to share the lessons he had learned, the wisdom he had gained, the passion that had driven him to the top. As he stepped up to the podium, his heart racing with nerves and excitement, he took a deep breath and began to speak. "I stand before you today not as a famous musician or a celebrated artist," he said, his voice filled with humility and grace, "but as a man who has been blessed beyond measure, a man who has been given the greatest gift of all, the opportunity to chase my dreams and make a difference in the world. And I want to tell you that the same opportunity is available to each and every one of you. No matter where you come from, no matter what obstacles you face, no matter how many people tell you that you're not good enough or that your dreams are impossible, never give up. Never stop believing in yourself and your ability to change the world. Because the truth is, success is not about fame or fortune or the size of your bank account. It's about the impact you have on the lives of others, the way you use your talents and your influence to make the world a better place. It's about lifting others up, even as you climb to the top. And I know that each and every one of you has a unique gift, a special talent, a voice that deserves to be heard. So don't be afraid to let it shine. Don't be afraid to chase your dreams with everything you have. Because the world needs more people like you. People who are brave enough to stand up for what they believe in. People who are willing to work hard and persevere in the face of adversity. And remember, you are not alone on this journey. There will always be people who believe in you. People who are willing to support you and encourage you along the way. Cherish those people and never take them for granted. So go out there and make your mark on the world. Use your voice, your talent, your passion to make a difference in the lives of others. And never, ever give up on your dreams. Because with hard work, dedication, and a little bit of luck, anything is possible. As Marco stepped down from the podium, the crowd erupted in applause, their cheers and shouts filling the air. And as he looked out over the sea of faces, he saw the same hope and determination that had once filled his own heart, the same fierce belief in the power of dreams and the indomitable human spirit. And he knew that his work was not yet done, that there were still so many more lives to touch, so many more hearts to inspire. But he also knew that he had been given a precious gift, a chance to make a real difference in the world. And he would spend the rest of his days honoring that gift, chasing his dreams and lifting others up one song at a time. Years turned into decades, and Marco's legacy only grew. His music continued to inspire and uplift people around the world, his message of hope and perseverance resonating with generations of listeners. He watched as the young musicians he had mentored went on to achieve great things, their own voices and talents shining bright in the world of music. And he knew that he had played a small part in their success, that he had helped to nurture and cultivate the next generation of dreamers and believers. But perhaps his greatest legacy was the one he had never intended to create, the one that had been born on that fateful day on the streets of the city, when a simple act of kindness and generosity had changed his life forever. For in the years that followed, the story of Marco and Ronaldo's unlikely friendship had become a legend, a tale of hope and inspiration that had touched the hearts of millions. It had become a reminder that success was not about tearing others down, but about lifting them up, that true greatness was measured not by the size of one's bank account, but by the size of one's heart. And so, as Marco looked back on his life, on the twists and turns that had brought him to where he was today, he knew that he had been blessed beyond measure. He had been given the opportunity to chase his dreams, to make a real difference in the world, to touch the lives of countless people with his music and his message. And he knew that none of it would have been possible without the love and support of the people who had believed in him, the friends and family who had stood by his side through thick and thin, the fans who had lifted him up and carried him forward on the strength of their adoration and admiration. But most of all, he knew that he owed a debt of gratitude to the man who had started it all. The football star who had seen something special in a humble street musician, who had been willing to take a chance on a dream that others had dismissed as impossible. Cristiano Ronaldo, the man who had changed his life with a single act of kindness, the friend who had taught him the true meaning of success and generosity. He had been the spark that had ignited the fire of Marco's passion, the guiding light that had led him out of the darkness and into the light. And as Marco looked out over the city that had once been his home, the streets that had once been his stage, he knew that he would always be grateful for the lessons he had learned, for the dream that he had been given the chance to chase. For in the end, life was not about the destination, but about the journey. It was not about the awards or the accolades, but about the lives that had been touched, the hearts that had been changed, the dreams that had been made real. And Marco knew that he had been given the greatest gift of all, the chance to live a life that mattered, a life that had made a real difference in the world. And that was a legacy that would last forever, long after the final notes of his music had faded away into the night.